Good morning. My name is Nancy McDowell. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and I'm here to welcome you this morning. Visitors, if we have any visitors this morning, please welcome. I welcome you, and please join us for coffee across the hall. Today, we have special visitors coming in online. The Thomas Paine UU Fellowship is here. 20 or 30 of them are joining us online, so very welcome to you all. Anytime you want to come and visit us, and we'll come visit you too. Let me introduce the worship team this morning. The Reverend Libby Smith will lead our worship this morning. While we call her a guest minister, I feel like she's one of us, so welcome back, Libby. A little bit about Libby. The Reverend Libby was ordained in 1992 and has served both as parish minister and as chaplain. Now that she's retired from congregational work, she sees her work as part-time patchwork ministry of trying to say yes. I like that, patchwork ministry of trying to say yes. Made up mostly of guest preaching and rites of passage, and enjoys having more time for her husband, garden, and cat. She says she's delighted to return to MLUC, and we're delighted to have her back. Our worship associate this morning is Dr. Tracy Simpson. Thank you for joining us and leading us today. Our music, it's another return to the stage, and also longtime members of the church, is the Zink family singers. We welcome, I want to get this order right, Anna, who's in charge, right? That's what I heard. Henry, and Michael and Teresa, so welcome to the family. This time together is a centerpiece of our communal life. Here we can let go, be held and be challenged as we share and reflect on life's journey. Through song and story, silence and the spoken word, we open our minds and our hearts to a place of deeper understanding. Together we strive to nurture a loving community that supports us in our individual spiritual growth and empowers us to work for justice in the world. Every voice and every heart are welcome and enrich our community. And now, a quick announcement from our board chair, Barbara Colton.
Good morning. Just a quick announcement. You've probably heard there are a number of major construction projects planned for this summer, for the next month and a half. And I just want to have it parked in your brains that during the first 2 weeks of August, the driveway and the parking lots will all be repaved. So we will be closing the driveways and the parking lot, and we have arranged for parking off-site at Didmore Park across the street, and even further down the road at Wayne Elementary School, and then to the right of us on Ladderback Road. We'll have more information about that. Come park, come to service. We'll be running services all summer long, or alternatively, you can Zoom in. And I'm realizing I'm trying to stand on my tiptoes here, so I'm up at the right level of the mic. So that's why I'm up and down. So keep your eye out. We'll have more information postings, but just as a reminder, you won't be able to park on campus at MLUC during those periods in August, but it'll be good when we get back and it's all done. So thank you.
And now please silence any electronic devices as we say together our mission statement, which is in your order of service. There we go. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
self-help book signed off on by the Reverend, who shouts to the converted, have mercy on this boy, he did it all by the book, but he still kinda has his doubts. Oh, you look pretty good in that John Quill dress, but your smile is a wooden nickel's pride, and I know that it ain't worth much, but it feels good to touch, and I think that I could dance if I tried with your radio on. I'm singing a country song, soft and low.
We light our chalice in gratitude for the joy we experience when we come together, for the insights we receive from one another, for the challenges we encourage one another to meet, and the satisfaction we receive from listening to one another and sharing our ideas and beliefs. Would you please rise now in body or spirit and join the Zink family in hymn number 112, Do You Hear?
Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights on the plain, in the vale on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear, do you hear? Through the roar, through the rush, through the thrall, through the crush, do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, hear both still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh startling trill in your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear? All the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers, they are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear? Do you hear?
Each month, we donate half our weekly collection to a worthy organization in need. The recipient of MLUC's offering outreach for July and August will once again be the Family Promise of the Main Line, formerly Interfaith Hospitality Network of the Main Line. MLUC's involvement with Family Promise extends beyond offering outreach. We continue to host families many times throughout the year. Volunteers provide meals, prepare sleeping spaces, and spend time with the families during their stay. Family Promise aligns with the UU Principle Number 1, which affirms the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and Number 2, which calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relationships. Please welcome Shari Richardson from Family Promise to tell us more.
Thank you so very much. Perhaps you had just hosted this week our families, and perhaps you were a part of that. So we can't thank you enough for your time. You're going to hear thank you over and over and over and over again from me, because we can't do this without you. I say that every time I speak because it's so true. But I wanted to thank you for including me in your service today, and also for supporting our families that we serve at Family Promise of the Main Line. Together with wonderful partners like you, we are helping families that are experiencing homelessness. We're so grateful for your longstanding support and can't say enough about what you do to help them. Whether it be your talent, perhaps you had baked something for the bake sale that your youth group ran and had a successful fundraiser, or your time being a volunteer to come and spend time with our families when they're here with you, or perhaps your treasure as a donation. We can't do this without you, as I mentioned before. I was a volunteer for many, many years before I started working with Family Promise, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate what it is like to give to others. And the love and kindness that you share with them, I know when they leave here, they take with them. And we're so grateful for that. I'm going to be here after the service today, so if you have any questions that you'd like to ask or share a story with me, I would love to hear about it. But thank you again for today, and thank you for all you do. Appreciate it.
To make a cashless donation, whether watching remotely or here in the sanctuary, please follow the instructions that you see on the screen or on the back page of the order of service, a QR code. The offering will now be greatly received. Will the ushers please come forward?
Golden ratio, the shell stairs ascending round themselves. The trees rustle as if to kneel and listen to the heartbeat of a lark, with a lark in my heartbeat. The oxygen and priestly green answers just in labyrinthine. The telescopes atop the mountains of ecstatic vision listen to the heartbeat of a lark, with a lark in my heartbeat. Hey, 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 hey. I am assured, yes. I am assured, yes. I am assured that peace will come to me. A peace that can, yes, surpass the speed, yes, of my understanding and my need. Meteoric warp and wind, counterbalancing the sparks ever ascending. The arrow time shoots forward, though it moves through repetition, to the heartbeat of a lark, with a lark in my heartbeat. Hey, 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 hey. What is it drives the driven snow now? Upon whose temples will I rest my weary hopes now? The rain distills down steeples, fills the ears of lonely church mice, with the heartbeat of a lark, with a lark in my heartbeat. Hey, 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 hey. I am assured, yes. I am assured, yes.
Would the ushers come forward with the offering, please? And would you join me, please, in our unison affirmation, which is printed in your order of worship? Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others. And now I want to thank the children for being so patient, since we rearranged things a little bit this morning, but we do have a story. And it's a story called The Rabbit Listened, and the pictures are going to be up on the screen because Jay and his wonderful tech team are going to be projecting them so that you can see them nice and big, but I'll be reading the story. I discovered this story, the grown-ups will hear this later, but I discovered this story completely by accident because I was doing this sermon about listening, and I needed a story to go with it. So I went to my computer, because that's what we all do now, right? And I typed in children's story about listening. And went down to Barnes & Noble that afternoon, pulled it off the shelf. So I hope you like it as much as I do. Jay, are we ready? We are. The Rabbit Listened by Corey Dorfeld. A little bit of an introduction here while we wait for the pictures to change. One day, Taylor decided to build something new, something special, something amazing. Taylor was so proud, but then out of nowhere, things came crashing down. The chicken was the first to notice. Cluck, cluck, cluck. What a shame. I'm so sorry this happened. Let's talk about it. Cluck, cluck. But Taylor didn't feel like talking, so the chicken left. Next came the bear. Grrr, rawr, oh, how horrible. I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. Grrr, rawr, rawr. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting, so the bear left. The elephant knew just what to do. I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering, so the elephant also left. One by one they came. The hyena, let's laugh about it. The ostrich, let's hide and pretend nothing happened. The kangaroo, tisk, tisk, what a mess. Let's throw it all away. And the snake, shh, let's go knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody. So eventually, they all left until Taylor was all alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit, but it moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together, they sat in silence until Taylor said, "Please, stay with me." The rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed. The rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to hide, to throw everything away, to ruin things for someone else. Through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plan to build it again. "I can't wait," Taylor said. "It's going to be amazing." So thank you all for listening to a story about listening. And now we're going to sing, And I think there's some activity for the children if they would like to go and enjoy that. Let's sing together as they go.
It is our custom to share our personal joys and sorrows, expecting to be heard, accepted, and supported. Candles of Community is our ritual of personal sharing and support. After each candle is lit, please join me in saying, "We hold you in our hearts." I'd like to start by lighting a candle of support and concern for all the people affected by the violence at the political rally in Pennsylvania yesterday. For all those people and their families, we hold you in our hearts. Terry Dixon would like to share a sorrow for his father, Victor Frederick Dixon, who passed away unexpectedly on Monday. For Terry and Victor and the whole family, we hold you in our hearts. Pat Jordan would like to light a candle of concern for Paul Liebman, who has been ill for some time and whose presence Pat has missed at church. Since Paul loves to sing, and on occasion Pat and Paul had been able to harmonize on the hymns sung by the congregation during the service. Pat would request that those of you who know Paul send him a card or contact him to wish him well in his recovery. His details are in the directory. For Paul and his family, we hold you in our hearts. And Pat would like to also light a candle of joy for Rich Alger, who is progressing in his recovery from knee replacement surgery and other associated complications. He still isn't getting around very well, but his sense of humor is recently on display at the reclining chair where he hangs out at the Alger Jordan household. For Rich and his family, we hold you in our hearts. And now join me for just a moment of silent meditation. The reflective reading today is called Listening with the Heart by Gary Kowalski. Maybe prayer doesn't mean talking to God at all. Maybe it just means listening. Unplugging the TV, turning off the computer, quieting the mental chatter and distractions. Maybe it means listening to the birds and the insects and the wind in the leaves, the creaking and groaning of the trees, or noticing who else is out there, not far away, but nearby, sitting so still that we can hear our heartbeat, watch our breath, the gentle whoosh of air, the funny noises from our own insides, marveling at the body we take so much for granted. Maybe it means listening to our dreams, paying more attention to what we really want from life, and less attention to all the nagging and the scolding voices from our past. Or maybe it's all about listening to each other and actually being present with one another. Maybe prayer means listening to the silences in between the words, noticing the negativity of space, the vast, undifferentiated, and nameless wonder that underlies it all. So maybe prayer doesn't mean talking to God at all, but listening with your heart to the angel choir all around us, and for those who have ears, let them hear.
I want to thank Dr. Tracy for finding that beautiful meditation to invite us into a spirit of listening. and to remember just how important listening is on so many levels. I'd thought about it as a lot of things as I worked on this sermon, but I hadn't really thought about it as prayer so much. So I appreciate that dimension. As many of you know, our household is still living very cautiously due to my husband's immune issues. And one of the things that I found I have missed most during and since the pandemic is the opportunity to offer hospitality in my home. And this actually really surprised me because John and I have never been party throwers. Neither of us are wildly social. Neither of us grew up in households that had other people over much. Entertaining has always felt intimidating to me. We don't ever have dinner parties. It's rare we even invite another couple over except for family. So you'd think it wouldn't make all that much difference. But for 10 years, I hosted in our home a graduate school reunion with a group of my closest friends from divinity school. It started as a whim because there were 3 of us who were housemates when we were all in grad school, and for 1 month of the year we were all the same age before Steve had his birthday and was a year older. So when we were all 29, we had a pushing 30 party. So 20 years later, I suggested getting the old gang back together for a pushing 50 party. Now, by the time we actually pulled it together, most of us had turned 51, and the group had expanded beyond the original 3 housemates to include several other friends, some partners, and one couple's 2 teenage daughters. But we finally gathered. And what a joy it was to spend an entire long weekend together, laughing and talking and singing and cooking and drinking wine. And since John and I had the largest and most central house of the bunch, we were the obvious place to gather. Now, having 8 extra people in the house for 3 days, all of them fairly intense people, was a challenge, but it was also a joy. Although there was the year that John found me crying in our bedroom on the 3rd floor, hidden away, and when he asked me what was wrong, I sobbed, "They're all the people I love most in the world, and I wish they would go home." But the feeling passed. We did this reunion for 10 consecutive years. The preteen daughters became young adults and wanted to bring their partners. "Can I bring Joey? We don't mind sleeping somewhere weird," which turned out to be an inflatable mattress on the dining room floor, which was hauled into the living room when we all needed to gather at the dining room table. 9 extra people in the house for 3 days. Still a joy. We looked forward to it all year. I began worrying that it was too much of an invasion for my husband, who is pretty much a solitary kind of guy. And while he likes these grad school friends of mine, they're not his people the way they're my people, you know? So after the 9th year, after they had all left, I turned to him actually ready to say, "Is it time to let this go?" When he looked at me as the final tearful car was pulling away and said, "This is a really important thing you do for your friends. You need to keep it up." Now, we did manage to squeeze in our 10th gathering in 2020 because we gather on Martin Luther King weekend in January. That was the pushing 60 party. And then everything changed. And we've missed the past 4 years. Year before last, we almost gave it a try, but infection rates started to rise, and in fact, 2 of the group were sick with COVID the weekend we would have gathered. Now, a Zoom reunion is better than nothing, but you can't harmonize. You can't sing together, and you can't cook together. I knew I would miss seeing them all, but the loss has been like a punch to the gut. And I hadn't realized how much of my sense of self was tied up in that reunion. Not only the maintaining and celebrating and nurturing of the relationships, although that was really important, but the tangible act of providing the hospitality, cleaning the house, making the beds, shopping for food, preparing to receive my dear ones. As a person who has often felt in that group of friends that I received far more than I gave, it became a life-giving way for me to give back in gratitude. So providing hospitality had become a big part of my sense of self, symbolic of the best of me, and so it feels like a big loss. then I stumbled across a quotation from Henry Nouwen. Henry Nouwen was a 20th century Dutch theologian, writer, and priest who offered me another way to think about hospitality, more specifically about listening as an act of hospitality. It grabbed my attention because listening is something I can still do, and I hope learn to do better. So I want to share his words with you. Nouwen writes, "Listening is much more than allowing another to talk while waiting for a chance to respond. Listening is paying full attention to others and welcoming them into our very beings." Now, how's that for hospitality? Not just welcoming someone into your home, but into your very being. That's a powerful concept. And then he goes on to say, "The beauty of listening is that those who are listened to start feeling accepted, start taking their words more seriously and discovering their own true selves. Listening is a form of spiritual hospitality by which you invite strangers to become friends, to get to know their inner selves more fully, and even dare to be silent with you. We can help other people discover their true inner selves by listening to them. We begin to discover our true selves when someone listens to us, takes us seriously, accepts us. Sometimes we don't realize that what we need is to have someone listen. We may not even realize we have anything to say, but the active listening of another person can draw us out, open us up, and provide space for us to be heard and understood and accepted. I first ran across this way of thinking about listening when I encountered feminist theology during my divinity school years. There's a phrase that became a touchstone among feminist theologians, especially those struggling to combat racism as well as sexism in doing the work of theology. It came from the work of Nell Morton, who was a 20th century American theologian, professor, feminist activist, and civil rights leader. She spoke of the power of hearing each other into speech. Hearing each other into speech, recognizing that until an intentional listening space existed, many voices would never be heard. So she was intentional about making space for women's voices in theological conversation, creating an environment that allowed and encouraged those voices to emerge, to be heard, to be understood and valued in theology, but also in the wider culture. It was a radical thing to do in mid-century theological work, to create that space for women's voices and especially for Black and brown women's voices, to welcome them into the conversation, to center them in the conversation rather than keeping them on the margins. And so the concept of hearing someone into speech had a particular power and significance in her context. Similar, I think, to the way now we're trying to be very intentional about creating this kind of space for trans voices. But the idea of listening as hospitality is much broader than any specific marginalized group of people. It's something we all need, and it's something we can all offer. I was very excited when I found this morning's story. I had planned to use something else altogether, and then I realized it wasn't really going to work. And I will acknowledge, as some of you probably know, that ministers who do a lot of guest preaching use sermons more than once, so this is not the first time I have preached this sermon. And the first time I was preaching it, I realized the story I was planning to use didn't work on Saturday. And I was preaching the next day, and I needed a story, so I did my little web search for stories about listening for children, and that led me to the rabbit. And fortunately, Barnes & Noble had it in stock. Now, our protagonist in the story, Taylor, was not sure what they needed when their amazing construction fell apart. Did they need to cry? to rage, to hide, to get revenge, to start over. All of Taylor's friends came by wanting to help, but they didn't pay attention to what Taylor needed. They were expressing what they would have needed under those circumstances, which I am guilty of all the time. I assume that what I need is what someone else would need. They weren't listening to Taylor. Rabbit was the only one who left an open space, a silence, so that Taylor could begin to understand their feelings. Rabbit just came and sat in silence, close enough that Taylor could feel its warm body. Rabbit listened before Taylor was speaking. Rabbit heard Taylor into speech. And that opened up the space for Taylor to think through what they really needed to express. And when Taylor had the chance to be heard, to work through all those emotions, then Taylor was ready to start again. Now, I know we're talking on different levels when we talk about a child's building blocks and when we talk about patriarchy and racism and sexism. But there is a way in which they're intimately connected, because they are all concerned with the lived experiences of people's lives, their hurts and their disappointments, their needs and their longings, the very real struggles and disappointments and triumphs. Mary Pellauer, another 20th century thinker, a social ethicist and theologian, who almost certainly was influenced by Mel Norton, who talked about hearing each other into speech. Mary Pellauer wrote, "If there is anything worth calling theology, it is listening to people's stories, listening to them and honoring them and cherishing them and asking them to become even more brightly beautiful than they already are." Listening to people's stories. That is an act of radical hospitality, especially the stories of people we may think we don't like or don't agree with or don't approve of. In my little Mennonite church, when we were working through the journey to become fully open and affirming to LGBTQ folks, we used a study guide comprised of stories, real life stories of real life people and their real lived experience in the Mennonite church. The author's preface, and I regret that I couldn't find my copy to be more accurate about who it was who put this book together, pointed out that when someone presents an argument on a controversial issue, often our impulse is to refute their argument with a counter-argument. But when someone tells us their story, our impulse is to try to understand the story. Listening to people's stories is a profound gift. Many years ago, I attended a workshop at Kirkridge Retreat Center, led by the Quaker educator and activist Parker Palmer. The whole workshop was focused on finding and embracing our own giftedness. It was called Gifted and Called. And one of the exercises he had us do, he put us in groups of 3, and he had us listen to each other's stories. If I remember right, the stories were supposed to be about something we were struggling with. Think about something we were struggling with and then tell the story to the other 2 people in the group. Each person had the chance to share deeply for a set period of time while the others did nothing but listen. Those of you in Soul Matters groups understand how that flow works. And we were supposed to listen with the sole purpose of then reflecting back to the speaker the gifts we had perceived in their sharing, the gifts they brought to the situation they were dealing with. Now, most of the time, when I talk to people, especially if I talk about something I'm struggling with, I'm braced for criticism. Or if not criticism, then at least for analysis, for suggestions, for help. People like to fix things. They mean well, like the animals in the story, they all wanted to help. But as Parker reminded us that week, most people don't want to be fixed. They want to be heard. And as we took our turns in those little groups of 3, speaking and listening and reflecting back, a remarkable intimacy grew among us. It is a rare and astonishing thing to pour out your heart to people, and in this case, people who prior to that week had been strangers to me, to pour out your heart to people whose sole purpose is to listen for the gifts hidden in your speech. It is equally powerful to listen to someone else with that sole purpose of listening for the gifts. So often we listen with one ear while we're preparing our response or our rebuttal or our suggestion. But listening for the simple purpose of affirming is very freeing and really beautiful. Like Taylor with the building blocks, we've all had moments when something fell apart in our lives. Maybe something we'd worked very hard on and were really proud of, and we needed to talk about it. I have a really dear, dear friend, one of my longest time friends back to the freshman year of college, who is very quick to try to solve my problems. She's one of my dearest and oldest friends, and I value her for countless reasons, but it is hard for her to listen without wanting to fix things. And early in our friendship, it created some significant stress, but over the years, we've learned to laugh about it together. And now she has learned to hear me out and then say, "Would you like me to problem solve here, or do you just want me to be with you?" This started when I was spilling out my heart to her and her husband one day in their kitchen. I don't remember what about, it was probably 20 years ago. And she kept making suggestion after suggestion, and finally he said, "Honey, I think what Libby needs you to say is, aw." So sometimes I do want her to help me think about what I could do or change, because she is really good at problem solving. She's smart and she's sensitive and she's intuitive and she has great ideas. And other times I ask her to just be with me in the struggle as I work it through myself. Now, Henry Nouwen, who I quoted earlier, had a lot to say about hospitality in the course of his work. And in his book, Reaching Out, The 3 Movements of the Spiritual Life, he wrote, "Hospitality is not to change people, but to offer them space where change can take place. It is not to bring men and women over to our side, but to offer freedom not disturbed by dividing lines." Now, he wasn't specifically talking about listening in that example, but it's just as relevant. We listen not to change people, but to understand them. And it's in that open space of true listening that growth and change can occur, perhaps for both parties. I had originally planned to use the Dr. Seuss story, Horton Hears a Who, for this morning, but there was just no way to abridge it to a reasonable length. But if you know the story, you know that the entire infinitesimal city of Whoville, small enough to exist on a speck of dust on a clover blossom, was saved from destruction because Horton the elephant listened and heard them calling, "We are here, we are here, we are here." I can still hear my mother's voice. Wow. Reading those lines. And Horton was determined to save them because a person's a person, no matter how small. Now, the other animals couldn't hear the who's. They didn't have Horton's big, sensitive ears. They thought Horton was crazy. They persecuted him. They tried to have him committed, literally. But he persisted, getting every who to shout and make noise until finally it broke through and everyone realized that that little speck of dust was full of an entire civilization who deserved to be heard and allowed to survive and flourish, because a person's a person, no matter how small. So as we think about listening as an act of hospitality, we can begin with the people we already know and care about, because I always encourage starting small. Start with the easiest job. And if you're like me, it can be challenging even with my partner, my family, my friends. It can be challenging sometimes to listen the way I would like to be able to listen. But we can pay more attention. We can provide the kind of listening that assures that, as Nouwen said, those who are listened to start feeling accepted, start taking their words more seriously and discovering their true selves. And in the process, we create a space where understanding can flourish and change can take place. And when we've had some practice with the people near and dear to us, then maybe we can extend our reach a little bit. What voices aren't being heard now? Who might need to be heard into speech? How can we leave space for that to happen? It begins with listening, with inviting the stories and seeking to hear and understand rather than to fix or change. So I leave you with these words from Mary Pellauer. If there is anything worth calling theology, it is listening to people's stories, listening to them and honoring them and cherishing them, and asking them to become even more brightly beautiful than they already are. May we all become theologians, providing spiritual hospitality by listening to and honoring and cherishing those stories. For our closing hymn, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and turn to, or follow on the screen, hymn 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us, will lead the way, on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can hear Him from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us, will lead the way, on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Look out, and instead of seeing the tops of your heads, I see all your beautiful faces. It's wonderful. These words of benediction come from the Reverend Barbara Hamilton Holway. Go now in peace. Deeply regard each other. Truly listen to each other. Speak what each of you must speak. Be ready in any moment to disarm your own heart, and always live as if a realm of love had begun. So be it. Blessed be. Amen.
Birds beneath my window, dusty in their wings upon a lawn. I hear them in the morning light, giving last day